This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Kevin. Hey Kevin, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's a nice day here in New Zealand. Um, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. I think this is going to be an interesting one. I'm personally very keen on it. Um, so to get us started, Kevin, if you just want to introduce yourself to the people, tell us a little bit about yourself, your life, anything you want to share.
Yeah. So I go by the name of Kevin King. I'm a New York City based rapper. So I am from New York City in the United States. I make really music about all kinds of things, a lot about my personal experiences growing up, about what, my day to day is like now. I also make a lot of just fun nonsense music here and there. Right.
Mm.
So, it's been a little bit of a journey. I've been doing this non-professionally since I was a kid, so, like, since 17, so it's been, like, at least
Oh,
13, 14 years now. But professionally and starting to really market the music and get everything going, it's been just under a year, and we're seeing some good headway, so it's really exciting to be able to talk to you today, and just sort of get to know each other both a little bit more, Mike.
nice. Um, so yeah, I always kind of like to start these things off in the beginning, in quotation marks. So Um, growing up in New York, and you said you did it non-professionally, rapping for like about when you were 17. So if you just wanna tell us a little bit about um how was growing up, and then also what motivated you to get started in hip hop and rap?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know that there's a thing that motivated me in particular. It's been around me since I was a kid. I remember being in the mornings, going to school, listening to DMX. I remember the days in the house where that would be the music that's playing. It would be at my father's job. He used to be overnight watchman, right? And I think that's what you guys would call it. It's he was a security guard or something. We used to just be there and he'd be listening to hip hop. So it's been in my blood along with a couple other genres since I was a kid. And it's been a culture that I grew up in the epicenter, of, right? So I grew up in the South Bronx. If you think about names like KRS-One back in the day, if you think about even the original sort of pioneers of hip hop, Cool Herc, Coke LaRock, the original rapper and DJ combo, if you will. Those guys all came from, maybe 10, 15 minutes from where I grew up, right?
Oh wow.
So it's needless to say that that influence is everywhere. Um, it's beautiful to see that it's grown so much, but it's something that even as big as it gets, it's always felt like home to me in a way that no other sort of genre really has. It's something that I relate to friends, family, and that I, on an emotional level, really relate to a ton. So I've always there's never been like an impetus that made me say, let me start doing this. But I started with poetry actually back in the day. So I was inspired by a lot of like slam poetry and the scene that was in like Harlem, uh, and sort of wanting to write and build up metaphors, similes, and storytelling like that. Uh, and then that became actually making music. It's just sort of taken off from there and it's got a life of its own.
Yeah, I feel like New York um really has, because it's weird from the outside looking in. I feel like there's a couple of cities in the States, LA, maybe Atlanta, but then obviously New York, where we just have this um, really deep hip hop culture where you have like really this history and like you've said, where it all kind of got started, and New York sound, to this day, like, is its own thing. Um, so you being around that and being inspired by that, and also starting with poetry, which I can actually relate to, because back when I was younger, I loved to meddle with a little bit of poetry myself, and just like um yeah, putting stuff on paper, and how that feels. So, um, being surrounded by it and inspired by it, what did it do for you personally to actually create the art?
Yeah, it did a lot, in the sense of an artistic standpoint. If you listen to my music now, there's definitely a lot of that New York City influence, right? There's a lot of heavier, boom bappier beats and some of the older freestyles that I used to do. There's a lot of the influence in the way that I actually put together my rhymes. You'll see a lot of that sort of golden age hip hop, if you like Tupac, if you like Biggie, if you like DMX, right? The way that they would structure their syllables, the way that they would choose their metaphors. I'm not putting myself on that pedestal, of course, absolutely not. But I'm saying the modeling, right? Those are some of the artists that had molded me when I was a lot younger, even a little bit zooming out into the tri-state, like Joe Budden, and the way that he would rap back in the day. Um,
Mm.
so I think from an artistic standpoint, it definitely molded how I choose to approach my music. A lot of hyper lyricism, a lot of imagery, a lot of sort of that boom bap, that old school hip hop type feel that we're sort of seeing resurgence of with acts like Griselda, right? Um, Beyond that, I think from an emotional standpoint, like I said it before, it's home, right? There's no other genre that feels like something that I want to make. That feels like something that I want to do. I can appreciate anything, right? I love all styles of music. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago and I was talking about Coltrane for 20 minutes. And I was talking about, I've talked extensively about artists ranging from Pink Floyd to, Lil Uzi Vert. So it's really a mixed
Mm.
bag, but nothing has my heart the way that hip hop does. So it's inspired me to actually create and stay creative when, I almost don't want to do anything else.
Right. Um, do you also feel like hip hop might be? I, I mean, it's always unfair to compare genres, because every genre, like you said, has its own thing. But um, hip hop, I feel like, always had that label of, it just really is about authenticity, and like it's much more than other genres. Maybe really matters what you say, like with what readiness you say it, and you feel that about hip hop as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no genre that rewards you for being yourself more than hip hop. There's definitely a lane for a lot of copycats. There's always going to be artists that sound like other artists. That's the only way that people really get into new things, right? It has to be familiar but different. But I think being authentic, even wearing your influences on your sleeve is fine. It's just the person that you are is always going to be accepted. And I think people mistake the sort of golden age, the gangster rap for being what hip hop is, was, and always will be. When in reality, when hip hop started, there were no real messages. It was, let's rock the crowd, right? Like, let's just feed energy
Mm.
to and from the crowd. After that, storytelling was very popular. Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow, these guys were telling stories and they weren't gangsters, right? They weren't people that were stick up kids necessarily. Um, you get into that sort of mafioso era and it's like that. But now you see people that are really nowhere near that sort of lane, right? Like you look at a Lil Nas X, you look at, again, a Lil Uzi Vert. These guys aren't pretending to be, big time drug kingpins or anything like that. They're just being themselves. And so Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be that way. I think there's no place that values authenticity as much as hip hop does and welcomes a variety of different.
And for yourself, you already mentioned a little bit about, and obviously, that's the cool thing about being an artist as well, that you can like do a lot of different things. You can do like songs with totally different vibes. Um, but you mentioned growing up in the South Bronx, which, again, to someone from the outside looking in, does sound like quite a rough neighborhood. So for you personally, what would you say? Who are you? Where are you coming from? What are you trying to portray?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question. I would say there's not a specific one story that fits all in the Bronx, right? And I think this is true of any major city. Um, it's one microcosm of a much larger story. And if you look at New York City as a whole, you have all the different cultures that have sort of coalesced there. But being from the South Bronx means you were around a lot of people that were similar in how you grew up, right? So socioeconomically, it was folks that had a harder time, right? There were things that were not familiar to me until I got older and got into, more intermingling with different classes of people and different groups of people and being able to sort of expand my horizons. So we were poor. It was people of color. So it was Black and Latino folks, right? A lot of Caribbean folks. We didn't have as many white and Asian folks inside of our groupings. Um, Even beyond that, it was a lot of sort of the regular things you experience on a day to day. It wasn't so different. I think music has a good way of telling a story, but any story obviously has a grain of truth to it with a little bit of fun sprinkled in, right? So people work, people come home, people pack their groceries, people, cook their food. It's the same thing. We live in the same environment. There's just some differences in the things you might see. Like I growing up have seen people get jumped, I've seen people get hurt, I've seen people go through things, and I've gone through things myself on those same sort of fronts, right? And some of the things that we were exposed to were, not ideal, but I think those things are regular pieces of inner city life, and it's just different. Like I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. But being from the South Bronx, it's very unique. It's its own thing. It's like saying I'm from Melbourne, right? But I'm from a specific street in Melbourne versus the street next door. It's like if you're
Mhm.
in this street, you're in this street. But if you were to describe it to somebody else, it might sound like you're describing the same street twice sometimes.
Yeah, I feel that that's the thing about experiences and growing up as well. Like, it's just it is very because to some extent it also then feels like this is what we're doing. This is our normal. So it's yeah, it's hard to like compared with other things that to other people is other people's
Yeah.
normal. So um yeah, that's a great point. Um so basically um you basically said three things in the beginning. You said you want to really talk about in your songs about you growing up. You also want to do some yeah, just some fun songs. That's what music needs to be as well, just entertainment. And then your day to day. So today, what does your day to day look like? What is things that is surrounding you at the moment?
Yeah. It's boring, which is nice. Um, Believe it or not. So growing up, things were a little bit more tumultuous, right? You sometimes worried about financial security, you worried about physical security. Those things I've been fortunate enough to sort of not eliminate. You still worry about money, you still worry about, you know, making sure everyone's doing well and everyone's safe and taking care of others. But it's a lot more of the adult struggles these days, right? So I work in IT now as a sort of a day job. Um, and a lot of that is the stuff everybody experiences. I think the getting to work, commuting, all that sort of fun stuff, the mundane, but being married, having people in your life, you argue with them, you go through things, you feel for them, you watch people that you knew as kids grow up and celebrate the things that they love, or sorry, the things that they go through as well. So graduations, birthdays, milestones, all that sort of stuff is stuff that I've been able to write about. And hopefully you'll see in upcoming songs. So yeah, I think today, thankfully, it's the regular story. It's the story that anybody can relate to. And I'm thankful to have it that way.
So, um, I mean, obviously, that's really good, and I totally agree that boring, in that sense, can be very good, and is a very good thing to strive for. So, the struggles you mentioned, just to then take it back to when it maybe wasn't as boring. So was that a lot of, financial? Was that the most part of it? Was it just, like, maybe struggling for purpose and meaning? Was that in there as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think coming from where I come from, there is a lot of, let's say it's bleak a lot of the time. I think a lot of people
Mm,
don't realize when you're surrounded by, you know, people, if you listen to Fall, which is on the King's Ransom tape that I dropped, there's a part in there where I think the line I know the line, I wrote it. Uh, where I'm from is you got to own a black suit just to live how I do every year. A funeral, convince yourself they're not like you, right? So you're putting in your head, oh, these things won't happen to me. These things won't happen to me. But you're always thinking about these things happening to you, right? You're losing people, right? Like I went through a period when I was in high school where I lost four of my friends in 3 months, right? And these were people that I was close to, and they were victims of gun violence. And
right.
even past that, outside of sort of that struggle, even growing up, sort of relating it to the boring, I've lost people to cancer, right? And that's not a thing that you experience at 16, that you experience now. So definitely struggle. When you see that sort of stuff, you think like, one, what's the purpose of doing any of this? There's a lot of that on we, but there's also finding that hope in it, right? Is you can look at it as we have time on earth that does not matter and we can do whatever the hell we want. Or you can look at it as we have all this time on earth. And since it doesn't matter, we can do whatever the hell we want. Right. And you can use that
Yeah.
time to, really grow. And yeah, it definitely gives you perspective in both directions.
So is that something, um, that you chose to put the perspective on more than, is the hope aspects of it all?
Yeah. I say now, especially, I think I consider myself an optimist. And I hope most of the world does. Everyone always complains that the world's about to end, but you know, people still show up to work the next day, right? They still go outside, they still pet their dogs. So, you could throw your hands up and just sort of accept it and sort of live day by day. And I think that's the sort of attitude that I really want to give people is whatever hardship you might be going through now, uh, there is light. There's still tomorrow. And you don't know what tomorrow brings. Sure, tomorrow might not fix today, but it certainly will have, or it certainly may have, something to make today worth it.
So, talking about tomorrow as well, just to maybe bring it full circle because we've touched on your past, we touched on your now, basically your day to day. Um, so for the future, is there because I did hear that you don't sound too unhappy about your life right now. So for the future, do you aspire for anything different? Do you what what would be the ideal or the just the future you're looking at the moment?
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate in that I'm happy with my life the way it is. Um, but I think that if I could ask for more, it's to really make my living purely through making music, right? I want to be someone whose fan base is steady, installed, and they come with me through my growth and my journey. And I'm able to give that to them and help them on their growth and their journey. Uh, that is sort of always been what I wanted. I'm never going to tell you I want to be the next Drake. I never want to be the next, hip hop version of Ariana Grande. I want to be one, the first me, of course, but two, I think I wrote this when I was like 17 on my Instagram profile. I was like, I just want to be in somebody's iPod before I die. So
Mm.
that's really all I can hope for is to make maybe a living off of this and really pursue it and really spend my time growing with folks who are just as interested in my journey as I am in theirs and be able to really build that relationship. But that's really it.
Yeah, um, that is always kind of the dream, more or less, is to be able to live off of our creative output. So you said like you pretty much have this very relatable story, and so I just really want to go into that a bit more because you said you have that IT job, and then um, obviously at the moment you're not at a point where you're solely living from music. So maybe to take us into that a little bit more as well, because you have that whole day job, you have like everything you have going on anyway, and then how um how does it work out with fitting in the music part and finding time for that, balancing that with everything else you have going on?
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't recognize that being an artist is a full-time job in and of itself, right? In terms of how much goes into it. And this is true of any content creator. I know you spend hours upon hours interviewing people, but people don't see that you also spend hours editing. You spend hours
Yeah.
deciding what to post on social media, even the research that you did for this podcast, right? Uh, it's incredible that you take the time to think meticulously through the questions, to give yourself excitement about the guests that you have, right? So to me, I think that's one of the big things that people don't realize is what we're doing is it's a career. It's not just us screwing
Mm.
around. Though, I mean, we're fortunate that we enjoy it, right? So it's not like I'm complaining.
Yeah.
Definitely nobody's holding a gun to my head or anything. And we can always stop. So the way that I balance it right now is I just do it when I can, right? So I make music as often as I possibly can. Always writing, I'm always thinking, I'm always freestyling. I think that's one of those things that really keeps my mind sharp. Um, I think especially that more than anything else, thinking through music ideas, playing with song structures and what I can do. Uh, but yeah, it's really all about just getting how you can fit it in, right?
Yeah. Especially for what you do for creating music. Um that freestyling is that basically is that the most important thing? Is that how you basically end up, is that like idea sourcing? Is that how you end up with things that you want to do, what you want to pursue more?
Yeah, it'll give me ideas for song structures, definitely, right? Because I'll play around with different pockets in a beat or different flows and sort of see what I really like and what sticks with me. Um, it also helps me with like, I think a lot about stuff. Like if I were to sit down and write, sometimes it'll take me like 20 minutes to get 3 lines out, right? Because I'm like, how do I connect all these lines so each and every syllable rhymes between them? And I'm like, maybe I don't need to do that all the time. Actually, I almost never need to do that. So it helps me with just getting something there. And then I'm sort of filling in the blanks when I write instead of it being something where I'm like overthinking and overthinking and overthinking. It helps me free up a lot. So it's important for me. I don't know that it's important for every single person, but it certainly helps me in what I do.
Right. Um, yeah, maybe if we can just go into the creative aspect of it all, then just a little bit more. Um, because like you've just mentioned, about the podcast and the things that go into all that. It's the same with music, right? It's not like you just go into the booth or just into like next to your microphone. You just say some words and then there is a song. So um, basically, yeah, we talked about the freestyling, kind of figuring out what you want to do. So if you have that idea, um, wh- what happens from then on until the product is finished? Because there's a lot of steps there, I suppose.
Yeah, there's the marketing, there's the creating the ad creative for it. There's figuring out content to put behind it. In terms of making the music, it's of course there's a writing piece, there's a performance piece. You might perform a verse sometimes 10, 20 times before you feel like it's good, you know,
Mm.
and then another 20 times before you feel like it's good enough. Um, I've personally had verses before where I feel every line is perfect except this one line, and I'll re-record this one line like 100 times before I'm like, that was the take. That was finally the take. That was exactly what I was looking for. And that's that overthinking thing again, right? Like I think that that's not necessary for almost anybody, but you need to be a little bit of a perfectionist at it and really sort of keep digging until you find what you want. Um, Fortunately, music is always going to have multiple hands in the pot. So for mixing and mastering, that's the type of stuff that I can outsource to somebody who has experience and has done that for other artists and is much better at that than I'll ever be. Um, so I really can grow my skill set in the songwriting portion and in the performance portion of it and really maximize my input there. Um, but yeah, after that song is made, recorded, mixed, mastered, it's all about getting promotion done, all about being able to give value to that song for the person who sees a video or an ad or something with those lines.
Maybe it is unrelated, but in my mind, I just had a conversation that I had with someone a couple of months ago, of like theater play and movies and the difference in the two, and basically how both things have their pros and cons. But the beautiful thing about movies is that you can like reshoot, because at the end you put out a product, a finished product that will be there forever. So that's kind of what a song is as well, maybe compared to like a live freestyle or something like that. So, um, because you said the overthinking part, but I feel like that is just a little bit part of it as well, because you basically once you put it out, it is there forever. So you want to like really get it the way that you intended it in your head. You really want that to be reflected on record.
Absolutely. The other thing though is, there's so many moving parts. So again, that mixing and mastering part is so important. Um, there are artists whose entire sounds are basically defined by their mix and master more than really by their mix more than their actual performance, right? So again, I never want to name names because it sounds like offensive to say that for some reason. But artists who you might think of as more monotone or who are a little bit more repetitive, that don't have a ton of variation in their performance, they tend to be really easy to mix. And you add them with auto tune, you add certain things to their vocals, and that's what their entire vocal style is. So it's a lot of both, right? It's definitely being able to know when to keep trying something and knowing, okay, this is probably not worth overthinking at this point. Then again, everybody notices everything. I don't know if you ever watched Game of Thrones. There was that
Yeah.
the very last episode or something. The last season, I'm sorry, there was like a Starbucks cup in the background and everyone went
Really.
crazy. Like, oh, you guys have eagle eyes.
I mean, I've seen the whole meme and thing about it, but I did not see that when I was watching the episode. I didn't like pay attention to that.
Those are the people that are scariest. It's the ones with the eagle eyes and the eagle ears. It's like, you guys are looking too hard.
Another thing that I realized we haven't talked about as well, which um, I feel like is also very important in the whole product of the song. And you talked about kind of the style that you like to go for, but the beat. So how important is a beat to you? How important is that part of the puzzle for you?
Huge. Yeah, it's huge. I think a beat that doesn't resonate with anyone doesn't really do anything for you as an artist, no matter how well you perform on it. If your backing track isn't worth listening to, or it clashes, or it doesn't, really tone well with your voice, it doesn't harmonize well with your voice, there's a lot of like missed opportunity, right? So I think it's almost as important as your performance itself, if not just as important as your performance in your mix.
Yeah. Sometimes because obviously we also said before that it is about the lyrics, it is about authenticity, and it is. But when we think about like older classics, when we think about some bangers, it's the beat. Like you definitely like once the beat goes on, you immediately recognize it and has uh like a feel to it that basically carries the energy, or rather already shows you kind of the energy that it wants to be like putting out, and then also inspiring the lyrics in a way.
Yeah. In you know, Japan, they're not going to be listening for how strong my English words are, right? So
Yeah.
there's a huge rhythmic portion, and that's a big part of any sort of music that you make. Um, there's an old Lupe Fiasco song called Paris Tokyo, where he's like, they don't understand the words that I say, but they nod to my beat. And that's, I tell my fans who I am, and they stand and they clap, they applaud, they love me, my God. That song, it really, that particular lyric, that encapsulates it, right? It's like, it's not always what you're saying. Sometimes it really is just, you want to hear something that is you escapable into, right? Like you can escape into it. You can really just enjoy yourself. Um, I think artists get very scared to be entertainment. And it's like, you're putting yourself out there. You are. But to some people, they're going to love you because you're entertainment. Some people are going to love you because you're a deep thinker. Some people are going to love you for whatever reason it is. But the thing that you care about is that they love the music that you make.
Yeah. Um, another thing that you slightly mentioned before in our conversation was that you also really want to like share that creative spark with people, that you really want to influence people, help people where you can. And I feel like that's something that is so important in just all sorts of creative arts or things that aren't really like things where we can learn skills from at school. It's important to kind of find people and find communities where we also support each other because, yeah, I feel like that has been missing. Nowadays, maybe it gets better because there is just more people that kind of know how it's done, that have done it for a while as well, rather than when it's especially for hip hop when it started off like 30 some years ago, where no one knew like anything about it. Um, but but yeah, how do you how do you see that? Is there a huge community? Does there need to be built one? How do we encourage each other and help each other?
Yeah. The community is always there. New York is a weird place because everybody wants to be competitive in New York, right? So everybody wants to be the best, and everybody, even if they love each other, they hate each other a little bit. It's like, that guy made something cool. I can make something better. So it's definitely something where the community is there for a fan base, right? It's such a big city. There is the ability to find people who are there, but you're also competing with a lot of noise. Um, but I think once you build that community, you really have the opportunity to strengthen your reach and really interact with people in a way that a lot of places don't give you the option to, right? There's open mics, there's performances everywhere, there's groups everywhere, there's people everywhere that are doing the thing that you're doing. And it's a beautiful thing. So the community exists even online, right? There's definitely that community. So yeah, I mean, you need to seek it, I think, a little bit. But it certainly is there in spades, and there's nobody, or rather, there's no shortage of groups that are willing to take you in.
Right. Um, ye I mean, the cool thing, like you said, is that a lot of these things we can find online, certainly as well nowadays. But apart from that, I feel like, yeah, that is just totally different living in a big city. Because let's say someone that's living in upstate New York probably doesn't have these opportunities, or at least not as many. And then in New York, where just a lot of people live, so a lot of people kind of interacting with each other just for the sake of them being in the same place and it's being like um highly populated. You just, yeah, naturally create these things, and these clubs form, these things form. So New York, not only for hip hop, but obviously for hip hop. It's just as this huge city that it is, just holds a lot of opportunity like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other thing, like you've said as well, is then there's a lot of um, competing obviously going on as well, because maybe the guy in upstate New York is the only rapper in his city,
Right.
rather than you having 20 on your block.
Yes.
Um,
Excellent.
I just actually this just randomly came up in my brain. I just remember there's one clip of Biggie when he started freestyling or like battling someone in the street. Um, is those kind of things still going on? Because we talked about like online and obviously technology. A lot of people um, are more online that they are offline nowadays. But are these sorts of like just gatherings in the street and just basically showing your skills, trying to compete with your skills out in the street? Is that still a thing?
I mean, you're not walking up to people and engaging them, right? It's not like Pokemon, but it is something that we still do, right? Like if we have open mics or something, there might be afterwards, we'll pop out and we'll have a little cipher. Ciphers are much more common than battling. Like I think people think about battling a lot more, but it's more common for us to just all, you know, I got a verse, you got a verse, you just do whatever. Um, but the thing is with hip hop, if you find another rapper, rappers get excited very easily about rapping. Um,
Right.
it's their thing at the end of the day. So it's common. It's not common, like you're not gonna walk down a random street corner and see it every week, but there's definitely spots where it still happen and definitely in different sort of venues that I've performed at, afterwards, if there's been other artists, it's something that's happened a couple times, for sure.
Yeah. um, I reckon if you do a gig and you're in a location where people are, it's more common than just this random guy be like, "Hey, you wanna you wanna battle?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, is because you said ciphers are way more common, and I personally like battle rap as well. Like I really like that kind of the art form as well, and people just freestyling, but also the thing that they do on big stages where you tailor right things
Yeah.
just towards your opponent. Um, are these aspects that for you personally, because that's all you can talk for, that influence you as well? Is that where you can learn things from as well, or is that not really something that influences your art?
I used to battle rap when I was a little bit
Oh,
younger. Uh, Um, I used to do like video battles and stuff on the net. Like I wasn't doing anything serious or in person. But yeah, of course, because they exercise one of the core tenets of hip hop, right? Which was lyricism. And that is one of the biggest and most important things that we cherish. So battle rap will always have a place, in my heart because those people really think through the things that they say in a way a lot of people don't, right? And you'll get these really cool, innovative, interesting metaphors and similes. You'll get these really interesting schemes and setups. And so, yeah, it's not going to affect the songwriting process as much, but it'll affect, the way that you can create images or the way that you can frame, the thing that you're saying. So, or the point that you're trying to make. So yeah, is definitely influential on how I write and how I think. Uh, but really mostly on that lyrical portion of it.
yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. That because that is the most impressive part of it all to me. As well when they just yank out like a wordplay or like something you're like, "Oh, it makes so much sense," but they thought of it. Because in hindsight, it's always like, "Oh, yeah, sure," but you have to come up with these things. Um, so I asked you the question about your future, but let's have that same question, um, for your music. So, basically, well, not only your future, but what musically are the things that you are working on at the moment? What kind of projects are you trying to go to? Yeah, where's your energy going at the moment?
Yeah. So right now I'm working on a full length album. Um, Hopefully that'll be out in we're targeting right now it's September of next year. So we'll have music coming out, until that point. We definitely want to keep a consistent cadence of music. So for us, it'll be every 4 to 6 weeks, something new will be coming out, certainly. For example, on January 20th, we've got a song coming out called Fake. That'll be that'll be out in stores, so Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you listen to music. And that'll sort of be the first start of this new era that we're going through. Um, we're playing around with some new sounds. I think that it'll be really interesting to sort of see where this takes me. Uh, but I'm excited for it. I'm definitely excited for it. We have a few different things lined up that we're working on, and it'll be cool. It'll be cool, to say the least. So for sure, if you're looking for something consistent, 4 to 6 weeks at a time, you'll get music on my end. So wherever you can find me at Kevin King 922, find me there. I'll be around and I'll be providing some updates.
Cool. Just because you emphasized full length album, and it's obviously a big project. Is that going to be your first full length album? Is
Yes.
that
Yeah. So the last project that we released, King's Ransom, is an EP, and that's up on all the stores as well. But that's mostly a compilation of the singles that we had previously released. So these songs are new to the public, but they are recorded a couple years ago. So, these are songs that we have sort of in the backlog that I really wanted to make sure that I let out, mostly because of the period in time they represented. I was going through a lot of sort of doubt and anxiety when I was making these songs. And I told myself, like, I've just got to sort of put it out there, let the public hear it. And it's up to them to make the judgment on whether or not they rock with my music. That's not up to me to do. Right. So that's been sort of the thing that's coming out of. And this new set of songs that's coming is it's going to be my first full length project. And I'm really excited to see what it shapes out to be fully as we work on it.
yeah? Because the the reason I ask is because this is super exciting. It's um it's a very exciting project, and to do it for the first time, yeah, I can just feel like um there's probably going to be a lot of learning, but just overall, yeah, just a lot of excitement to be be doing something like that, and then having at the end of it like the finished product. Yeah, that's a very exciting journey for you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Kevin, I feel like we really had a very nice conversation, and I obviously want to wish you all the best for that journey and your exciting project there. Um, so yeah, you already said a little bit of where we can find your music, but um, just lastly, and anything where we can find you online, where people can check you out, and I'll put all the links in the description as well, so they can easily find it. So yeah, where can people check you out?
Yeah. If it's social media, Kevin King 922. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. Um, I'm going to be at Kevin King 922. Uh, Otherwise on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever your favorite streaming services or on YouTube, it's Kevin King. Uh, The project is called King's Ransom. The last song off of it is called Fall. It's doing pretty well. So, if you can find it online, definitely please do. Um, Give it a listen, share it. Right. I think there's no better thing in the world that somebody can do to support me right now than share the art. Right. Especially if you like it. Right. If you don't like it, still share it. Right. Maybe somebody else will
Yeah.
like it, but if you do like it, especially, feel free to reach out. I respond to comments, DMs, everything. I really am trying to stay in touch with the fan base, especially as it grows. Learn what you guys want and sort of build to that as well.
Cool. Um, so yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your journey with us, taking us through um, your life, your creative process. all these things. I really enjoyed it. It was a really, really interesting one.
Yeah, thank you. I think I couldn't have asked for a better host today, Mike. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, so enjoy the rest of your day, Kevin. And with that, bye, everyone.